Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. This is a subject that I wanted to cover for I think the first time I read about it, but at that time I was not on YouTube. And that is the so-called controversy surrounding Jesse Owens, the great American athlete, at the 1936 Olympics in Germany, in Berlin. And the so-called controversy had to do with, supposedly, which is not true, the bad guy Adolf Hitler, when Jesse Owens won 100-meter flat, whatever you call that. Supposedly he went and congratulated Jesse Owens and shook his hands. That was not true. And obviously a lot of people gave a lot of interpretation. Why was that so? Because, you know, Adolf Hitler had his racial ideology and so on, and hatred, and he considered blacks in a certain way. Now, to be honest and direct and fair, he said, yes, those guys are different in a negative way, that's Adolf, but he also claimed that they are better physically than us. That's what he claimed. He claimed that they should have their own Olympics. Now, that's not in defending anybody or pointing a finger at anybody. It's just providing you with statements. He believed that they should have their own because if you bring them in, they will win, which they did. According to him, you know, things should have been changed. So what happened? Jesse Owens, whose grave I visited a few years ago near Chicago, Illinois, in the state of Illinois. I have a picture over there with his big headstone and so on. Very, very good athlete. I picked an article here coming from CNN with a, how do you call it, a grandson of Jesse Owens. And I have to tell you that every time I see a grandson of a famous person, I don't give a shit unless that person really achieved something. Like, for instance, you have Kirk Douglas, all right? Kirk Douglas was a Jewish immigrant from Poland. And Michael Douglas, his son, he was an actor as well. Good actor, and so on. Well, in his own terms. Now, I don't know how much the father helped the son. Like, for instance, you have Ben Stiller, the same Ben Stiller. His father also had some strings to pull. And you're going to find Clooney as well. Clooney had some connections with his father and so on. So when I hear a son of a big shot, I have to see that person's achievements. It doesn't mean that that person can't be right. But when he tells me, my father would have done it, or my grandfather would have said that, for me, it comes from here, because you don't know shit about it. You might be closer to your father's, way of thinking and so on than I. But still, you don't have extra weight. Like, oh my God, let's listen to what Mr. Jesse Owens' grandson has to say about that event that we know. But I'm going to get some things straight. Here is the title on CNN. Jesse Owens' achievements at 1936 Olympics were, and I'm quoting, thumb in the eye of Adolf Hitler, says U.S. athlete's grandson. Well, Hitler was not happy about it, but as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, he was, well, maybe things should change. All right. In what way? I explained. So this guy says right here, and this is the grandson right there. He doesn't look like his grandfather whatsoever. The one on the, how do you see it? This one right here, okay? So this is the grandson. So it seems like he doesn't like his culture too much, and his family tried to switch sides here. You know what I mean? If you don't, all right. So, American Jesse Owens' achievements at the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. He won 4 gold medals in 100 meters, the 200 meter and 4 by 100 meter relay, and the long jump made him a track and field great. Excellent. Those achievements came under the gaze of Adolf Hitler, who had initially planned for the Olympics held in Nazi Germany to showcase what he believed to be the racial superiority of the white, so-called, and I'm quoting, Aryans, athletes, openly denigrating black Americans participants as, and I'm quoting what his guy says, non-humans. All right, that's what you need to know about this one. He says here, Owens' grandson Stuart Owens Rankin describes the track and field great actions as a thumb in the eye of to Hitler. My grandfather's legacy continues to prosper. When people do find out, and it's not often that I discuss it outwardly, but people do eventually find out, for example, perhaps though watching interviews like this, their response is always positive. Good for you. Their response is one that fills me with pride. Wait for what I'm about to say at the end of this video, because it's going to destroy all this garbage that this grandson says. Again, their response speaks to my grandfather's accomplishment, yes, and the enduring quality of what he did in the 30s, and sort of timelessness of those accomplishments. Excellent. This is the great champion. That fantastic right there. He was and is. And I said, all right, let's check it out. And I went to Snopes, and this is fact check. People like fact checks, okay? I don't, but in this case, they mention something that I can mention here and don't be accused of anything, because it's not me, it's Snopes. Jesse Owens and Hitler shook hands at the 1936 Summer Olympics? Question mark. No, they didn't. And they say, no, that's false. And we have another great picture of Jesse Owens right here. Fantastic. And why do I say fantastic? Because it's a achievement of humankind. And it says false. Did Adolf Hitler snub Jesse Owens at the 1936 Olympic Games, or did the Nazi leader of Germany and the Olympic gold medalist actually shake hands? They didn't. The Olympics rumor recirculated in December 2016 along with the claim that there were photographic evidence of the latter. Those were false. But I'm going to go at the bottom. All right, at the bottom. And the last piece of this is this. Owens said that he felt snubbed, but not by Hitler. The snub came from the United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the Democrat, who did not extend an invitation to Owens to visit the White House. The man who actually snubbed Owens was President Franklin D. Roosevelt. After the 1936 Berlin Olympics, only the white athletes were invited to see and meet Roosevelt. Owens, the most successful athlete at the times, bemoaned that he, and I'm quoting, wasn't invited to the White House to shake hands with the president. End quote. Owens was finally named the Goodwill Ambassador of Sport nearly 20 years later by President Eisenhower. So, what do you think? So, okay, Hitler was a bad dude, right? With his ideology. What about Franklin Roosevelt? And America the Great? Was there any difference? And I remember reading about this in a book that I of Mr. David Irving, historian. You can't really name him because he was a bad dude, okay? Because he didn't. Anyway, I'm not going to go into it. Where he said exactly this. Jesse Owens said, Hitler did not do that. He sent some congratulations, if I remember, not face to face, but he said, well, what hurt me it was that I was not invited to the White House. I didn't shake the president's hand either. So what's the difference? Ones are hypocrites, the other ones are just bad. You know what I mean? So that guy said certain things and he did certain things that are bad, but at least he said them. The other guys pretend to be these defenders of good and and they do. All right, my friends, I wanted to make this straight. I don't know how far it's going to fly with YouTube, but I didn't say anything that was not there. It is not a fact. Nevertheless, that's the same thing that happened with Joe Louis, the boxer, remember? With Schmeling. They made it between the free world and the Nazis and the Schmeling, when Schmeling beat Joe Louis in the first fight, and then Joe Louis beat Schmeling and say, hey, in Detroit, Michigan, there's a forearm like this with a fist, and it's hanging, a big one. I can't remember, like 10 meters, 7 meters big, like this, and it's hanging. And down there somewhere it says that the fist that broke the Nazism and so on. And if you look down on that little what's written underneath, it is sponsored by a certain kind of group. Can you guess what group? Yeah, okay. Well, the fact is, Mr. Joe Louis unfortunately died in poverty, and he was helped by whom? None other than the character guy Schmeling, who was a bad Nazi, who paid mainly for Joe Louis' funeral. Schmeling, who was a successful businessman in Germany after the war. So he had something and he did it. So you see this kind of, oh, that guy did this, you find out, wait a minute, what did the US government do to him? He was, if you remember, Joe Louis worked as a doorman at one point in a casino. I think it was, I can't remember the name of the casino, in Las Vegas. You remember that one? Caesar Palace, I think it was. This is how we reward our champions. Correct, correct. I'm not saying the other ones were better. I'm saying these guys are just hypocrites. On top of being, you know what I mean? Now, if you want to look deeper, there was it the 25 points in Nuremberg written by those socialists, remember? And that they took note. They almost copied another party in the United States of America's platform. Look into that one. Look into that one. And you're going to find out people's statements from the bad guys saying, well, we actually did, we just looked the Democrat Party's platform and you can compare them when they came with that platform. A lot of people say only no, three things about those socialists, national socialists. Two things. Those guys hated those and those guys hated those. That's it. That's it. But why don't you read the 25 points? That's more than they hated this and they hated that. And always look at the facts. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.